Got it. There we are. Well, good day. Here we are again. Lovely, almost end of September day.
Yes, we are 27th of September, a Wednesday, which is a couple of days behind. You're a couple of days ahead of our usual weekly get together. But it's been a pretty busy week all around.
Well, yes, yeah. And I'm happy to say that we've got another little trip planned. We're going to go up into the interior for a week again and let our batteries get recharged after all the hustle and bustle and furor of the last week.
It's been interesting. Yeah, our viewers and listeners outside of Canada must be wondering what's in the water in this country.
Is there any sanity left? I was going to say yes. I remember when our infamous current leader was elected in 2015. His big statement, I guess, to the world was that Canada was back, and I'm not sure that this is really how he meant, but it's been a very shameful week from my point of view.
I
Not
agree.
from a country point of view, I think we still have a great country, but we've talked about it before. We've got children running the place. The adults, surely to goodness, after seeing what's going on this last week, should be standing up and saying, enough is enough here, folks. It's time to put the parental controls back on.
Well, it is discouraging to read not so much in our Canadian press what we're seen as, but foreign press, and not just press that might automatically be anti liberal or anti-Trudeau
Mhm.
or what have you.
Yeah, yeah,
But when you hear folks on media such as the BBC, or which has its own foibles, but that kind of media, or France, Agence Presse France, or Al
yeah,
Jazeera,
yeah.
saying things about how juvenile the leadership in this country, and and that's probably the least negative word I can use that has been used by some folks.
Well, I
And
guess part of that is because if you use any other words, you wouldn't get it past the censors.
yeah, no, but it has been a shameful uh,
Week, week
week,
now. Yeah,
and the folks know who pay attention to our broadcasts that we try to stay away from some of the extreme stuff that's out there. But when Canada, which is by and large uh, in today's world a pretty nondescript place in the UN, or just globally,
yes,
now the press we're getting is of a whole other uh, genre, which
yeah.
I in my 70 year, I never thought we'd be seen as so silly, so backward. So as I said, the juvenile,
Yeah,
the leadership is juvenile, and that so much stuff is broken in terms of Canada's reputation. I mean, used to be that Americans or Germans or whatever traveled to different parts of the world, and they'd sew a Canadian flag on their backpack so they wouldn't be seen as the citizens that they might be. I don't think I want to put a Canadian flag on a backpack right now in various parts of the world.
well, we've talked about it before. I think I'm glad that my current passport has another few years to go, because I don't think that I would have the energy to sit down with my box of thick crayons that comes with a new passport to color the pages appropriately.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
and I can't help but wonder if this is a script somewhere. we talk pre-production. I mean, for the people that are probably as old as we are, I wonder if we're just going to wake up one morning and be like on the Bob Newhart show and found out that this was just all a bad dream.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a great analogy, Bob. Uh, Look, let's wind back a week ago
mhm.
when the India Canada schmozzle blew up, where our prime minister accuses the sovereign state of India of literally killing people here in this country without a shred of evidence, or other than a cleverly worded announcement in Parliament that says credible allegations, not even
Yeah.
credible suspicions, credible whatever. Okay, well, the very word credible, it means you have proof.
Mhm.
Allegation means you have to prove it. Where is everybody knows that that was said in Parliament, where you really can't sue anybody. The problem is that the dislike between Canada's leadership and the Indian leadership has
It's deteriorated.
well, yeah, but it started when this PM of Canada decided he was going to mock the Indians when he went there in 2018 and dressed up in this costume. This was something that is unforgivable. Okay.
It
And
is.
especially in a society that's as traditional as the Indian society, and one that's as varied as the Indian society is, from Sikhs
Well, that's true.
to
Yeah.
Hindus to, you know,
Well,
so
it's much like the other uh, power nation over there in China. How many dialects are there in China? Unified now under Mandarin, but India's the same way. There are I couldn't count the number of tongues that would be there that make up that nation. Uh, and I guess going back just even one step further, why after such a second disastrous trip to India for an international conference where apparently our leader was not welcomed with open arms, was stuck because his airplane wouldn't work, which goes back to the fact that we don't spend anything on anything militarily. It seems rather circumspect to me that the first thing that goes on in the House of Commons is a disparaging of the country that he's just come from, where he wasn't treated in the manner that he thinks that he should have been.
well,
I don't
that
know.
whole trip to me shows how juvenile the whole thing was. First of all, he didn't attend the dinner first or second night he was there. His absence was glaring. Modi, the Prime Minister of India, gave him 10 minutes in a hallway, which, according to the readouts from the PMO, was that a huge meeting took place and lots of things were discussed. Well, trust me, in 10 minutes, very little was discussed in the hallway. Uh, and in the difficulty of Canada in the greater scheme of things, particularly in Southeast Asia, is apparent by the fact that when Australia, the US, New Zealand got together on the Five Eyes, one of the eyes that wasn't there in the UK was Canada. Okay, which suggests to me that those four have decided, for reasons that may be obvious to them,
Valid.
not to us, is that they don't want this unserious partner in
Mm.
that crowd, or
Yeah.
they don't trust that partner,
Or
which is,
both.
or
Yeah.
both.
Mhm.
And so this is very disconcerting. And if there were real journalists in this country, they might actually ask those questions, like, why has our reputation
Yeah,
been
I yeah,
turned into?
I'm just so Um, there we go.
I know it's depressing because
Very, and and then to come off that fiasco, which wasn't going well, and stumble into another landmine field by having a elderly gentleman stand up in the House of Commons and be glad handled and applauded
twice standing ovation.
and yeah, like I'm sorry, the buck stopped somewhere, and it wasn't with the Speaker of the House.
No,
Uh,
he was thrown under the bus. Let's face it. But the nonsense of that goes way back. Look, Canada has a very shameful history when it comes to the Nazis coming to Canada after the Second World War. There was a whole royal commission called the Deschênes Commission that was created to look into it, and it revealed, to some extent, why there was cherry picking of Nazis in Canada for the same reason that the Americans and the Russians were divvied up whatever Nazis they needed for their various scientific programs. I mean, let's face it, as we said earlier in our pre-production, who became the head of NASA? A Nazi. Werner von Braun was the guy who was busily making rockets that, fell into London and killed thousands of people. But that's okay because, in the end, he was able to get the Americans on the moon. So all was forgiven. But to go back to the Shane Royal Commission, to this very day, there are parts of it are still under seal. Now you tell me why that's the case. Why not come clean? Are there still real dark secrets on this? Or are there still
I
can't
think
be very
part of
many
that,
of them alive? This guy up in the gallery was 98 years old.
I think that's part of the problem is that maybe some of those people are still alive, and if that commission was unsealed, I guess is the word, how many of those people would be like? I hear Poland is now looking for extradition of this individual.
Yes.
How many others would be in the same boat?
Well, I think it's a question of how many people are double crossed
Mhm.
in the
Yeah,
process, right?
yeah.
Because that's, I think, the real question here is if there's that much that is toxic in the Deschênes Royal Commission report. And that's under the Liberal banner, by the way,
Mhm.
same party that's in charge right now. So it's not like they could say, oh, it's the other guys who did it. No, you guys did it.
Well, I would
Okay.
venture to say, being perhaps the cynic that I am, is that if it was a conservative government that had the Deschênes Commission, it would have been opened up probably within the last week.
Well, this just
Skeleton.
before we came on air, I was watching a question period, and the apology, so called, from the PM about this was at best
Scripted.
well, acceptable in a parliamentary sense, but that's all. Okay, it's and of course the whitewashing, if you will, of the whole thing, and the attempted disposal of the information by the government house leader, who said, "Well, why don't we just,
Yeah, we'll just delete that.
we'll just delete that from the records?" Like, who does that? This is what Stalin did. This is what Hitler did. That's what fascists and
Also
dictators do.
1984, right?
Yeah, we just cut that out. This is what
Mhm.
How dare she say that? How
Well,
how can a minister of the government actually stand up in parliament and suggest we'll just remove that from the record,
well,
and then and then to say that I had nothing to do with this when there's actual evidence of her putting her hand on the shoulder of this guy in parliament in his wheelchair. I didn't even meet with this person. You know, you can't unsee that. The very people who took the pictures and posted them on the internet, I'm sorry, but you are so stupid, so dim-witted as to say I wasn't there. What are you going to tell me next? It was photoshopped? Come on. I mean, this is how like I
Well,
said, they
go back
call
to
us
Bob Newhart.
juvenile.
We're going to go back to Bob Newhart. It's really all a bad dream, and we
It
can
is, it is, yeah, except that, like I said, yeah, and we agree, it's not our shame, it's their shame. Okay.
Mhm.
And shame on them. They're absolutely despicable,
Yeah.
with the lying and the nonsense that they're making up. And this is just for our Canadian viewers and listeners. The guy that props up this whole mess, who which leads back to the whole India fiasco, is really the culprit to some extent, because without that support, and I won't even use his name because I did. He's not worth having his name mentioned. And think if anyone wants to look it up, why is Trudeau propped up by who? They can Google it if they want to. But the Canadians know who I'm talking about. Uh, we have essentially a majority government run by people who weren't elected. Okay, nobody elected the far left leadership of that party, the NDP, to run this country. This is a fraud. Okay, nobody asked us for this, and as voters, as taxpayers, as citizens of this country. Okay, these people are a fraud. Sorry.
Yeah. And another great Canadian writer, Rex Murphy, has been writing about this. Although I haven't seen anything from him for a while, but he coined that great term. Well, you can't suck and blow at the same time, but that's what the guy that's propping up this charade of a government's trying to do.
Yeah.
On one hand, saying, well, look at all the things that we've got you, and the other side is, oh, how can you do that? The same guy that runs around with $1,000 Rolexes on his arm, and you know,
And this is now Wednesday. It's been 3 days. The head of the government didn't even bother to show up in Parliament for 2 days. He was too busy doing interviews for a film group in Toronto and talking about nonsense. I won't even repeat what he said because it just makes you sad. I'm actually more saddened than angry because I don't know where this country is going, and why we are sliding down into the depths of the third world when it comes to politics and economics. Like, you know, uh, today he was going on about in the same question period, apart from constantly talking about Ukraine and we're going to be there till the end, and doesn't tell us why we're there in the first place. But be that as it may, giving away $650 million to the Ukrainians. Meanwhile, we've got people sleeping on the sidewalks in Ottawa, and I'll tell you about that in a second because I was there last week. He's got the balls, to talk like that. Meanwhile, there are literally thousands of people who are like cattle on the streets of Toronto and Vancouver and whatever. But when you go to the nation's capital, like I was last week, and you're 200 yards from Parliament Hill, and you've got people of all ages, all colors, lying around on the sidewalk. Okay, you couldn't just say it was a bunch of white kids that were strung out on dope. There were black kids there. There were East Asians there who were sitting in filth and rubbish on the streets, okay, for blocks around Parliament Hill. And you're going, this is why we're so proud of what Canada's accomplishments are. Please, I'm sorry. Don't tell me about the 650 million you're sending over to Ukraine when you can't even look after the people in this country. And then going on about, oh, we've got your back. We're going to deal with those high food prices. What are you going to do about that?
well, it's kind of like our infamous premier out here in BC who wrote to the governor of the Bank of Canada to say you really can't raise interest rates because that's causing inflation. But by the same token, he was not willing to reduce not one of his carbon. We have two carbon taxes out here, by the way. So as a result, we're paying $2.06 a
Yes,
liter
well, you're
for.
not allowed to challenge that logic. Okay, that's the other part that is scary in this country. Is the When it's a bald-faced lie that you're being told by your leaders that We to ignore those taxes. It's got nothing to do with the fact that you can't afford to buy gas or go or buy an extra loaf of bread or whatever, or even buy a loaf of bread, because there's a lot of people who can't do that right now. Oh, no, no, but we're going to save the planet, right? You can't save the guy on Main Street. Forget about saving the planet.
Yeah. Well, I think it was on the news last night out here anyway, that the latest study showed that there were at least 7 million Canadians that were relying on food banks. And, you
Well,
know,
and so are the thousands of
that's what,
students
yeah,
who
well,
are
that's,
here also going to food banks, okay? Because
yeah.
they can't afford the rents. They have nowhere to stay. Meanwhile, they're bringing them in by the plane load, and not my problem. Because people at the food banks will tell you, particularly in places like Kitchener, Waterloo, Toronto, where the large university towns, that these kids are being told go to the food banks because that's where the food is.
Hmm.
What do you? You just spent $50,000 to come to school here, but you haven't got the money for the food. Well, because we were told that there's free food in Canada. Well,
Hmm.
those food banks weren't designed for students from abroad, uh, you know.
Well,
But
it's
I
frustrating
don't
to think
see
again.
our prime minister saying anything about that
But
in
the
his
first
fancy
first thing
socks.
any of these people that are landing here should see is that in the state of disrepairs for most of our road systems here,
Oh,
it's not gold that they're paved with.
I got to tell you
It's
that
not paved.
the roads in Ottawa are a disgrace. It's like being on a corduroy. I think I was telling you earlier that it was like everything was like run down in
Mhm.
the city. It looked worn. It looked gray. It looked broken sidewalks, stuff dug up, but no. One of the cabbie was telling me they dig up streets all over the place, but there's nobody there for weeks doing anything.
Mhm.
They're busy putting bike lanes everywhere, but there's nobody on bikes. There's detours. It's just it kind of matches the feeling you get of two worlds operating. Downtown Ottawa, full of a lot of people who are in serious distress. And then when you drive maybe a kilometer out of town, you're back into the green, you're back into the nice suburbs. And I guess that's where all the civil servants are working because they're not downtown.
Mhm.
Those buildings are practically empty still.
Yeah.
And then you're wondering, well, how did they grow the public service by some 38%, but nobody's actually in these buildings doing anything? And by the way, did you get your Nexus card yet?
Well, yeah, I
Still
did.
waiting because yeah, I know. Well, it's just like my neighbor's was told to be 12 weeks for her passport. What
Well,
country takes 12 weeks to issue a passport? I mean, come on.
well, a lot of it has to do with the thick crayon supply, which may come from another country. But
You have to explain the crayons to people because if you're not sort of up on that,
well, all I would say is Google new Canadian passport.
oh, okay.
Anything that was of historic nature, where we had pictures of the Vimy Ridge, people of stature, Terry Fox, uh, hockey players of note, have all disappeared and been replaced now by snowflakes and I don't know what else. It boggles my mind that we would try to remove anything to do with that kind of history and replace it with something that is so inane.
Yeah, well, that's the juvenile aspect of the leadership who allowed this kind of nonsense to take place. And again, we have to be very careful because they do not like to be criticized.
That's true. But I think part of this comes from, and I will say, particularly here in Canada and at the federal level, provincial level, and even to a certain extent at the municipal level, that when you watch the political channels like C-SPAN or legislature of the particular province, it's supposed to be a house that is well respected, but in reality, it is a kindergarten room for adults. It's I can't watch that stuff. I mean, it's sickening. These people are being paid here in Canada $190,000 a year to act
Yeah.
like kids. Come
Well,
on.
there's a lot of downstream stuff from Hollywood on this, though, Bob. You know that. Look at our pals to the south of us here have a senator who decides he's going to wear jogging pants and a hoodie, sorry, shorts and a hoodie and sneakers because that makes him comfortable. This guy's a senator, and the actual Senate of the United States thought that decorum is okay. And you're going, have you lost your minds?
Well,
Who's going to take this country seriously? Okay, so
well,
someone in Hollywood thinks this is a good idea.
it'll be interesting to find out what happens in the coming weeks when we have to elect a new speaker to the House, because apparently everybody has to vote on that. You can't be absent. So the hybrid practice, I guess, where you can attend all the House of Commons meetings in your pajamas in your basement, uh, is not going to cut it when they have to elect a new Speaker of the House. So I guess all those people are going to have to go into their closets and dig out their fineries and get on an airplane and go to Ottawa to find out who's going to be the next Speaker. And I have to admit, I think that's wonderful. Like, I'm sorry, if you're getting that kind of money to represent your constituents, you should be in the House.
Hey,
And
if you don't want to do that, find yourself another job. You
yeah,
know, like no one forces you to be an MP or a senator or a congressman. You don't want to go do something else. I am so sick of these people who have this entitlement. Well, I'm giving up my family. Well, you know what? Then go back to your family, right? I don't
if
really
that's
care.
important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
and if
sorry.
that's important for you, then you have to make that decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, right now I'm turning into the grumpy old man because I hear stuff like that, and I'm going, you know what? If you don't want to be you don't want to take on this role, go do something else. It's the same as the ones who are going on endlessly about, there's corruption in government. They're unethical, but it's only at the top, and I'm going, stop this. If there was only at the top, we could deal with it. The problem is that the same people who are underneath the people at the top and underneath the next layer are shutting their eyes and are not saying anything. They're just as bad. If
Mhm.
you see your boss stealing money and you close your eyes, you're just as bad as the guy stealing the money. I
Mhm.
think, oh, well, that's just not rank and file. No, the rank and file is just as corrupt because they haven't got that. They're cowards because they won't speak up and say, you know what, my boss is a crook. We're gonna blow the whistle on him. Oh my God, because all these ideas are being blown up.
Mhm.
Oh, you can't do that. Yes, you can. It's time because if we don't, those people that we've been looking down our noses at in the rest of the world are going to have our lunch. Okay, because
Yeah.
we're too busy doing stuff here that's of absolutely no interest or concern to the vast majority of the people on this planet.
Mhm.
That's the truth.
Yeah. Well,
This we focus on stuff that outside of the Anglo-Saxon core countries, nobody gives a damn about. Okay, we
mm,
do. They just don't care. They're busy promoting their own technology, uh, building their own lives, increasing their own economic and military capabilities. Meanwhile, we're sitting around talking about, and I won't even go into the social stuff that just makes just craziness in our schools,
mhm.
in our corridors of power. This is nonsense. And we're being laughed at. So in the last week in microcosm, I guess, is exactly how everything's so screwed up. A country like Canada is being laughed at. Why? Well, just like we represent, I think, the leading edge of stupidity.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess,
Boy, we sure took a axe to that.
we're getting close to the end of time here, but
Yeah.
I guess for me, what I'd like to put out there is don't give up on Canada, the country. We're being seen in the light of the inane that are running this place right now. But not to say that anybody else would do any better or
No,
any
they
worse.
have to do
I
better. No, you
don't
have
want to
to.
say that nobody could do any worse, because that becomes a challenge for
I know,
people.
I know, I know. But we have to do better. We have to stop being afraid to
Mhm.
say what's on our minds. We have to stop being afraid of being bullied by these people, because that's their secret weapon, you know, is
Mhm.
they, if you don't agree with them, they bully you, they call you names, they try to make your life difficult. Why? Because they're afraid. Because
Well,
bullies are usually afraid when someone stands up to them, because they're cowards for the most part.
well, that's right. And yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm looking for some adults, and I don't want to say it, but it's kind of like when I joined the service, and we had a lot of old World War II vets that were running the place. And I was one of the young kids coming in and thinking, God, it would sure be nice to get some younger blood in. Let's let's get these people, and when they retire, we'll do things different. Well, yeah, we did things about the same, probably not quite as well. And after some of the, I don't want to disparage Bozo the Clown, but when we had some of those guys that were in there, and you had Carol King's March of the Clowns song, uh, I would have loved to have taken any one of those old veterans back, because at least you knew where you stood. They knew what was going on. Yeah, maybe they were corrupt. Uh, Maybe I was too young not to see that. I don't know, but uh, I don't know where we're going, and I know I'm too old to be involved with anything like that. But maybe it's time for us old generation to stand up and start demanding accountability. I don't know. Maybe that's where it has to start.
Well, in other cultures, old guys are supposed to be wiser and provide that kind of guidance to younger generations and what have you. Um, I don't, I look around in around my peers in this community, and there's a lot of folks my age who've given up as well, because I don't know what's happened to them. Maybe they've been drinking the Kool-Aid, as they say, and they don't want to rock the boat. They're tired of life. I don't know what it is, but if we can, if by doing what we do here, we're able to have a change in attitude and some move things back to the middle a little bit, and bring back principles and some traditions that still make sense, and bring back honesty in government, and bring back that feel good thing, which is very hard to you know put into words, but the feel good factor is gone. We need to find out how to bring back optimism, and that requires for us to start believing in some leadership of the mature kind, not the juvenile kind. And by the way, the juvenile leadership has nothing to do with age in this context either, because there's a lot of nitwits and nincompoops that are in charge in various places across the board. So let's not use this as an ageism thing. That's the spread of nincompoopism has been going on for some time now, and it cuts across ages. So, but I think we need to be positive. We have to bring back some. We so we're, as this ELO used to have a song for those who follow rock and roll. We just need a few good men. And sorry for the folks who would like to have few more people kind, but we see, we need a few good men to fix this up, and that's in the generic sense. So I would be very happy to have a brilliant woman come and start straighten some of this stuff out, as much as I would have a brilliant man do it. So in either case, we should maybe pull that song. Oh, we can't play that song for copyright reasons, but that people want to, play that ELO song. But we just need a few good men who'll understand.
But that's right, yeah. And it goes back to the 2015 ceremonies, the swearing in ceremonies of the government that was elected back then to have a gender equitable cabinet. And I'm thinking that's not important to me. if the Minister of Finance is a person who has an economics degree and has actually balanced checkbooks before, that has more, and I don't care whether they're a man, a woman,
All the
white,
letters of the alphabet.
orange,
Yes.
pink,
Yep.
that should be the criteria.
Yeah.
It should be
Well,
based
you're talking about a meritocracy. We have to bring that back. Otherwise, we're doomed.
Mhm.
Okay, sorry. But as a society and as a collection of countries who are currently navel gazing at best, we are as a society doomed if we don't pull up our socks, and we don't have a lot of time. I
No,
don't think.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
No.
so, but on that optimistic note, uh,
Things
let's.
can always be better tomorrow.
That's right. So if you like what you see, don't hit the button down there somewhere that says you like. Subscribe, pass it on to your friends. Remember, this is available on Rumble and on YouTube. Sometimes on YouTube, shorter because YouTube does censoring, and soon we'll be doing two versions. We'll do a long version on Rumble and an edited version on YouTube because they just don't like monetizing what we're saying, and there's reasons for that. But also, you can of course you have the podcast. And by the way, on Substack, we are now able to give you a transcript of this. So if you want to read it or use it for whatever purposes, you can get the transcript on Substack. So
Well, that's good to know.
yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, it's been 3 days early or 3 days late for our weekly get together, but we done did it.
we did done it.
Yeah. All right, Bob. Well, you have a good rest of the week.
And you do. Yeah.
Yeah, and stay strong, stay healthy. He's he's good. All right. Take care.
See you later.